Coming up on today's show, I want to talk about Jim Harbaugh joining the Chargers and what that means for the Broncos as the AFC West gets another legendary coach. And then we'll talk about Sam Darnold as a potential bridge quarterback after Russell Wilson and before the Broncos draft a rookie QB that they are ready to turn the reins over to. Or should Denver just skip the bridge period altogether and go draft a young quarterback and use him as a building block for the future? So with that being said, let's start off by talking about the AFC West coaches because this division just got a whole lot harder. I know the Chargers had a down season, so the Broncos were able to kind of shimmy on by them and whatnot, but still, Justin Herbert's not going anywhere, and it just got tougher. Not only do you have to face Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes twice a year, not only do you have to face a Raiders team that has had your number ever since they moved out to Las Vegas, now 4 seasons ago, but now Jim Harbaugh just waltzes into the division. And between Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Jim Harbaugh, you've got 17 conference championship appearances. Between Sean Payton and Andy Reid, you've got 3 Super Bowl rings. And between Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Jim Harbaugh, you've got 6 Super Bowl appearances. Like, just pound for pound, this division, at least from a coaching standpoint, has to be the most difficult in the National Football League. So I do want to get your opinion before we talk about how to combat the Jim Harbaugh addition to the party. Where would you rank Sean Payton in the division? I don't think you can rank him number 1. Andy Reid's the best coach in the AFC West. That's just not changing. Is Sean Payton better than Jim Harbaugh? If I had to pick between Harbaugh and Sean Payton, I would pick Jim Harbaugh. So let me know where you would rank Sean Payton in the AFC West. Now, let's get into ways to combat Harbaugh joining the division, right? What do the Broncos have to do to prepare for 2 games up against the Chargers coached by Jim Harbaugh? Number 1 is the Broncos have to get better in the trenches. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan and at the 49ers, he dominated on the ground. Whether it was with Frank Gore or Blake Corum, they were dominant, like I said, on the ground. Number 2 is you need a better run defense, right? Whether it's Frank Gore or Blake Corum, you have to find a way to slow down the run. And number 3, you guessed it, it's all the above. If I'm thinking about what the Broncos have to do first to get ready to face Jim Harbaugh twice a year, because I believe that home games and division games are crucial to a head coach's success when we think about evaluating how good a head coach is. Like, just looking at it through the lens of a fan, like, if a fan's going to pay a lump sum to go to a lot of these NFL games, which are extraordinarily expensive, they want to see a win. And fans want to see success in the division against their rivals. And not both those things have been, well, accomplished the last couple of seasons. But if we're talking about getting ready for Harbaugh and the Chargers, it has to start with improving the run defense. The Broncos' front 5 last year just could not stop a nosebleed. They were bottom 5 in the National Football League. DJ Jones and Jonathan Harris, bottom-tier run-stopping defensive tackles. Zach Allen's good against the pass, but he's not the greatest run stopper. Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, Nick Bonito, I like those guys. That's it. I don't think they're the best run-stopping outside linebackers in football, and you shouldn't believe that they have to be because that's just probably asking too much. You just have too big of expectations. So if Denver's going to get ready for Harbaugh and a warpath on the ground from the Chargers, well, they're going to have to beef up the interior defensive line. So here are 5 free agent defensive tackle targets just to keep an eye on. The number 1 name, I would say, is Chris Jones in terms of household name and just eye-popping and relevancy. But one guy to watch for is the Baltimore Ravens defensive tackle, Justin Madubuike. He has been a top 5 defensive tackle this year, and he's much closer to number 1 than number 5. I am sure the Ravens are going to do everything in their power to bring him back. But if they don't, what if the Walmart family backs up another truckload of cash for a free agent signing? DJ Reader from the Bengals, he suffered a torn pec towards the end of the season, but he was a top 5 defensive tackle as well this season. I'm a big fan of Reader. I think he'd be a good target for the Broncos. Sheldon Rankins and Grover Stewart, they had really good years, and they're going to be a little bit cheaper than the first 3 names we looked at, so those are more of some cost-friendly options. Now, if you're looking towards the draft Jazon Newton, he is by far the best interior defensive lineman in this draft class. He's going to go somewhere between 11 and 20, if I had to estimate. So if Denver, for whatever reason, decides pick number 12 is not going to be on a quarterback and they want to beef up the interior defensive line, Newton out of Illinois is the man for the job. The other 4 guys are more of day 2 targets. Maybe they slip into the end of round number 1, maybe Byron Murphy, but outside of that, those guys could be available for the Broncos in round 3 potentially. But like I said, Harbaugh dominated on the ground in his last 2 stops, and I am sure that as he builds a culture and DNA in LA, it's not going to be candy-ass football, right? It is not going to be, we'll pass it around, we'll be cutesy with it, we will be, finesse with the football. No, they are going to want to punch you in the mouth, and they're going to want to run it down your throat. That is what he did in Michigan to make him so successful. That is what he did in San Francisco. There's more to it. It's not just run, punt, right? Harbaugh had a lot of success with Colin Kaepernick, who, by the way, ran the football very well. So if you want to slow down Harbaugh, stop the run. That is priority number 1. And you got to get better on the interior defensive line to do it. Next up on the show, I want to talk about Sam Darnold as a potential bridge quarterback for the Broncos. Joel Klatt joined Andrew Mason from Denver Sports, and they discussed the idea of him coming over to Denver. So I want to bring that up on today's show. But first, I want to tell you all about our sponsor, which is Prize Picks. Thanks to Prize Picks, not only did I have a blast watching some of the dud-ish primetime games this year by staying locked in, but also I'm doing the same with a bunch of NBA games right now. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Prize Picks, let me catch you up to speed. You pick 2 to 6 players, then choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, the more players you select, the more potential winnings, right? You could turn $10 into $250 if you go all the way up to 6 players. So after the divisional round, I went 3 for 4 on a couple of matchups. So I figured, you know what? Let's just water it down a little bit. And I'm going with a simple twofer for the people. Taking the more on Justin Tucker at 1.5 field goals. And then the more on Travis Kelce at 64.5 receiving yards. Love it or hate it, you know that Patrick Mahomes is going to go to Travis Kelce with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. So those are my selections for the AFC Championship game. If you want to stay extra locked in, try and have some skin in the game, try to make some money off this bad boy, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I've put all that information, because I know you didn't write it down, in the comments and description of today's video. That's Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Let's switch gears and let's talk about Sam Darnold. So he was suggested as a bridge quarterback by Joel Klatt when he was doing an interview with Denver Sports, and I figured we should bring that up on the show because he backed up Brock Purdy this season for the 49ers. We saw him play a couple of times, but the former top 3 pick by the New York Jets has not had a very strong start to his NFL career. Didn't work out in New York, went down to Carolina. Just kind of felt like that would be a good opportunity for him to hit the reset on his career. Maybe the New York media was too much for him. The Jets are just a dumpster fire of an organization, but go down to Carolina, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, new surrounding, fresh setting. That should work out well for Darnold. Ultimately, it didn't. And now Sam Darnold is on a path where he's going to be regarded as a top-end backup QB, but I don't know if he is someone that teams should be chasing after to start 17 games for. Sam Darnold in 17 games might be able, with an easy schedule and a weak conference or weak division, to keep you in the mix, keep you in the conversation. We've seen that before. I mean, look at I remember when the Seahawks, with the end of Matt Hasselbeck, won 7 games and won a playoff game. The Buccaneers this past season, it would look to be a reset for them with Baker Mayfield. What do? They win 9 games, they host a playoff game, and the rest is history. However, it's a little bit different in the AFC West, where 9 wins is not going to win you the division. Now, here's what Joel Klatt had to say specifically. There are opportunities in this league for guys that don't succeed at some places to go on and have success at others. Sam could be one of those guys. Now, I understand the pushback to no more bridge QBs, no more bridge quarterbacks. Did it with Bridgewater. Did it with Flacco. Did it with Case Keenum. Trevor Siemian. No more bridge QBs. Let's draft a quarterback and let's have a homegrown product be nurtured by the Broncos, bring him up, and let's go with that plan. And I understand that. I don't think it's a bad plan. But the issue is that people want to ignore the Broncos tried that, right? They drafted Lynch in the first round. They drafted Drew Lock in the second round. And those didn't work. So Denver has made an effort since Peyton Manning, hung him up to try and go the homegrown draft route. And they struck out both times. So they have gone down both paths, and both of them have failed the Broncos. The difference maker is Sean Payton was traded for and paid handsomely to make the best out of the quarterback and also make the right decision at quarterback. That's what's failed so many of the previous coaching staffs, okay? The Russell Wilson trade was not a Nathaniel Hackett decision, but Vic Fangio couldn't just get down the quarterback spot, right? And it goes on and on. So Vance Joseph could not get the quarterback position down. Sean Payton has to. He has to make the right decision. I don't know what that decision is, but Sean Payton has to nail it. Otherwise, whether it's the bridge route or it's the draft route, both of them have failed. If you don't want to sign Sam Darnold because you want to draft a QB, fine. Go draft Bo Nix. Might work out, but he might just be another Drew Lock. Second round pick that has high expectations and ultimately fizzles out. And then before you go draft another QB, you find a bridge quarterback. And you just keep going in this circle. Now, if I'm doing some good PR work for Darnold, it would be last year with the Panthers. Remember him, Baker, and P.J. Walker all kind of rotated at quarterback. He kind of caught fire towards the end, like 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So I think Darnold could start in this league. Maybe not for a long time, like maybe for a couple of weeks. But I think Sam Darnold might be one of your next best options if you decide to move on from Russell Wilson and none of the QBs you want are going to be there at 12. And you don't want to just draft a QB just for the sake of drafting a quarterback. Because if you do that, you know what's going to happen? You're going to find yourself in 2 years needing to draft another quarterback, and you're also going to be shorthanded other key spots on your roster because instead of taking that corner, that defensive tackle, that defensive end with pick 12 in 2024, you took a quarterback just for the sake of taking a quarterback, even though you really didn't believe that was the right decision. Make the best pick. Even if it's the unpopular one in the moment, do what's best for the Denver Broncos. So pick a QB. If you were Sean Payton, would you go with Sam Darnold? Or how about run it back with Jarrett Stidham? I know that doesn't really get a whole lot of butts in seats, and that doesn't really sell newspapers, but Jarrett Stidham might be your next best option. He signed a 2-year, $10 million contract for a reason. Sean Payton has some serious trust in Stidham to be this team's quarterback. And so I think Jarrett Stidham goes into week 1 as this team starter. I think Stidham will be the week 1 starter. That is my take right there. Jarrett Stidham, week 1 starter. So we're definitely going to see some QB competition be added, but I think it's Stidham's job to lose. And I think this coaching staff likes Jarrett Stidham. Could they like someone else more? Absolutely. But I do think that the job is taken at the moment. And the job belongs to Jarrett Stidham, right? It's not like it's a complete vacancy and all options are on the table. Right now it is Jarrett Stidham, but they're going to look to improve. And if they can't find an improvement, they're going to roll back with Jarrett Stidham in my eyes. Now that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's kind of a late Thursday night edition of the Broncos Breakdown, but I really appreciate those of you that tune in every single day.